intro so people know who they're listening to this morning. So I'll just tell you my story and then go from there. So my story starts out September 29th, 1998. When I woke up, it was a Tuesday. And I woke up and looked over to my right and couldn't find my wife. Didn't know where she was. And just about that very moment, Connor, my 4-year-old, comes in and goes, "Where's Mom?" I don't know. So we get out and we walk down the hallway, and then Kyle comes in. Kyle's 14. He goes, "Where's Mom?" I don't know. So we look in a couple of the rooms, and we go downstairs, and I can see her downstairs, face down, in front of the washer and dryer. She's kind of all crunched over and everything. And so we go running down there, and I turn her over, and she's got this stuff coming out of her mouth and nose and things, and it just didn't look good. So Connor starts crying, and he's kind of hysterical. Kyle, I said, "Go up and call the fire, call the police, call all the people." So within a matter of 5 or 6 minutes, we probably had 15, 20 people in our house just swarming it. And they'd taken her out into the rec room, and they laid her down and had all these wires and tubes and paddles and all that stuff you see on TV, and it's just like stuff like that. It seems surreal. And I talked to groups from 10 or 15 to 500 or 1,000. It doesn't matter the people that are in the group. I always know there's a percentage of people who have had something like this happen. And for those of you that have been through something like this, time loses all measure. And so I didn't even know how much time had passed, and this little short fire person lady comes up to me and she goes, "Mr. Brooke, we've been working on your wife for an hour and a half, and we still don't have a heartbeat. Would you like us to continue?" And at that very moment, even though you're in shock, I realized I'd never before in my life had to make a life and death decision for anybody. And I said, "No, you can stop." And she was dead. She was 38 years old. And as you can imagine, Kyle and Connor were inconsolable, and you're in this state of shock. And so as everybody kind of poured into the house over the next few days, my family and friends and people bringing things, and we had to plan a funeral, all that kind of thing, you're still in a state of shock. But I remember that was September 29th, so it was probably October 1st, 2 or 3 days later. I walked out onto the deck of our house in the back, just a small deck, and I kind of looked out at the sky. And that's probably when it impacted me more than anything else in my life, because I realized now I understand why people kill themselves. And I was going to kill myself. I got 2 little boys I got to raise. But I could understand why. And I think I remember doing this. I'm just flesh and blood, and there's some skin and some bones and this cartilage and this things. I'm just a little person here trying to do the best I can. But when you've gone through something this traumatic, it's really, really tough. And you really think about the alternatives that are out there. What made my story so tough is way before that, I had all these other tragedies happen in my life. My mom had been manic depressive, and she was always threatening suicide, which was just terrible to me. And I was at Queen Anne High School and then the University of Washington, and she'd shake these pills. "You better get over it, I'm going to kill myself." And then she dies of cancer. And my folks had been divorced through a very nasty divorce, and my dad commits suicide with a shotgun, which was just the most shocking thing, because you don't expect that. At least with cancer, you know when something's happening. My 2 best friends died the night we graduated from high school in a car accident. Many more friends in Vietnam, and probably 15 to 20% of my Queen Anne class of 550 people are gone now. So and there was quite a few more. And I just thought, I'm going to have to figure out a way to cope. And it really comes down to how we decide we're going to cope in this life. And I talked to Beverly a little bit, and I talked to Sandy and Metsu and just a few people. But life is like this. This is so much fun up here, but this is where the lessons are. And this is where you decide whether you're going to make it back. And this is where you decide how you're going to cope. And what had happened with Dana is she had gotten hooked on prescription medication. And that whole situation is a nightmare. And it's a huge, huge problem in our country. But you have to decide. Sorry? Dana, your wife? Dana's my wife, sorry. And it's so interesting, because when you look at the way people cope, and there's this drinking, and there's smoking, and there's drugs, and there's popping pills. I read something the other day. I live in Bothell, north end of Seattle. So there's all these break-ins in the east side, Bellevue, Issaquah, Mercer Island. And they notice that when they come in here, the computers and all these things are money, jewelry, are all in place. And they can't figure out what's going on, and the medicine cabinets have been raided, and they're empty. And that's what they're going in to get. So what I really realized at some point is I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to look at this thing. I could go out and be Mr. Negative, and I think probably be pretty, Kevin mentioned it about, what was your name again? Cheryl, I think, mentioned it too. You can tell just by their attitudes. Well, not that you aren't all happy here. Sandy was very happy. But it's an attitude. It's a choice. You can go left or right. It's the T in the road. You don't get to go straight. You just pick your choice. Make your choice. So you can be happy or sad. But I had to make a choice. And it does depend on how you look at it. So what I'd like to do very briefly, there's going to be no speaking on your behalf in this, but I'd like you to all stand up. So I want to have a little exercise for you. And I can always see the faces go, oh, good Lord, here we go. This better not be participation. So take your right arm, whatever, take it up, stretch it up, it's kind of stretching, and start turning it in a clockwise motion. If you don't know which direction it is, there's a clock over there. And it's like this. Okay, get that nice stretch. That's a little extra bonus to the program this morning. Okay, so keep it going clockwise. Now bring it down. Keep it going nice and steady. Good job, Dave. And just keep it going down here. Get it to your forehead. Now get it to your eyes. And about your chest level, and down about your waist. Now what direction is it going?
Counterclockwise.
Very good, Dave. I have a prize for Dave for getting that. Okay, so you can, so what happened anyway? So you can sit down. So, yeah. there's always, I did a presentation yesterday. I did a presentation yesterday, and there's always somebody, and they're going like this, and I was thinking, it's just how you look at it. And it just kind of depends on how you want to cope. And I think that for me, one of the things that I really realized, I'm 63 years old. When I was 19, I did a talk for a teacher that had moved on to another school. And I remember being in front of a group, it's only 30, 35 kids, and I was drinking water so fast that my mouth was so dry, I was so nervous. But I realized right then I wanted to be a speaker. I didn't know about what. I didn't know how gratitude or any of this other kind of thing motivation would get into my mind, but it came up later. But it took me almost 40 years to realize that dream, and now I speak once or twice a week. And left my job running the big box. Roger, you run a Safeway? I take it. So big box, just like Roger. Mine was Lowe's, and before that was Nordstrom. And I thought, I got to get this message out here. I got to get connected with people that are struggling, and with so many people that were dying in my life, and all these people that are breaking into houses to steal medication. I've got to help out with this. And ultimately what I found was gratitude. And it started very, very simply with a friend of mine saying, you need to get a gratitude journal. And I do sell one, and I sell a lot of them, and there's something that I feel very, very strongly about it. But I will tell you first, I had to make a decision though. And the reason when I talk about this, and you have to decide how you're going to look at things, is one of the things that I noticed, and I could go around the room, I know some of the names already here just from listening this morning, and ask you send out 10 emails, how many people get back to you? 4, 5, 6, I don't know. It's not 10, at least for the most part. So which way are you going to be? Are you going to be what I call the 1 or the 19? And the reason I started thinking about this is this Dr. Dickinson at the treatment center where Dana had gone prior to passing away. He says, you need to come on here, I need to talk to you. Are you David Brooke? Are you Dana's husband? I go, yes. And he goes, your wife's got a real problem. Because she'd gotten hooked on Vicodin and Oxycontin. And I never thought it would take her life. But he says, come on in, sit down. And go, see that group out there? There's a group of about 50 people. And again, I always say this every time I talk. I always guarantee there's a few people here that have been touched by this. Family, friends, children, spouses, whatever. It's sad. But they try to make you feel better by saying, see him, he's a doctor. He's an attorney. He's an architect. And I get all that, but my wife over here's got a real problem. And he says, but I need to let you know what you're up against. And he said, of all those people out there, 1 in 20 will make it back to a normal life. And of the 19 that don't, half of them will be dead in the next year. And she'd passed away about 6 months later. So it made me start to realize this 1 in 20. And I talk about it, and I'll mention it too in a little bit about the journal, where to me it's become such a part of my life. I mean, even have mine, just started, mine last about 3 months. And so I just started a new one. And here, it takes 7 minutes. And here's my entry for the last couple of days. And people look at it and go, so do you write it every day? I go, oh, did you hear me? Were you listening to the talk? I said every day. It's like, do you just brush your teeth occasionally? I mean, it's like, come on. And so, but it has that kind of power. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I found so interesting about the 1 in 20, managing all these people, I don't know about Roger's store, but I just know from the retail boxes, I managed up to 500, 600 people in my biggest Nordstrom store. It's a lot of people. And I got very frustrated with the amount of people that didn't follow through. Were they on time? Were they a half hour early, Sandy? No. They were, sorry, I had a flat tire. And it's always these excuses, and I got really fed up with it. But I had this employee once, her name was Tracy. And this is when I started my own business. So I've been spouting this 1 out of 20 for 10 or 15 years, maybe longer. And she kept saying, I'm the one. I want you to know, she'd always hold up her finger, I'm the one. And I said, well, good for you, Tracy. I'm so happy. And so then there's another guy that works. It was a detail shop. I'd left Nordstrom's, wanted to start my own business. And then when Dana passed away, I closed it. I just couldn't even cope for a couple of years. It was very, very difficult. So then she gets pregnant with one of the guys at the shop. And I think she may have had a tough life. I'm not sure. She may have been an exotic dancer or possibly been abused. I don't know. I mean, you don't.
Nice way to put it. Shocking to use it.
Thank you, Beverly. And I used to say something else anyway. And so, but I felt bad for her, but she kept saying, you watch it. She was trying to really turn her life around. And so then she says, well, I'm going to have the baby. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to Texas, where my folks are. And I'm going to have my baby, and I'm going to turn my life around. You watch, I'll be that example that you're always talking about. You think I'm one of the 19. No, I'll be one of the ones. So about a year later, I just get this call out of the blue, and it's Tracy. And I've kind of forgotten about her, frankly. And she realized, oh, of course. She goes, I just want to let you know, I'm your sterling example. I'm the shining example for you. I'm the one. And I said, great, how's it going? She goes, well, I had my baby. I said, fantastic. And what's his name? And it was like John or Johnny, something like that. And she goes, and here's the best part of all. I have a new man in my life. I said, well, that's great. She'd had some kind of shaky characters. And what's his name? And I think it was Roger, if I'm not mistaken. His name is Roger.
You're in your 30s, right?
And I said, that's fantastic. So what does Roger do? Oh, well, he's on work release right now.
Oh, God.
And I just remember holding the phone, just going, is that really the way to turn your life around? And so I think in some ways, I always challenge people, do you want to be the 1 or do you want to be the 19? And whether it's writing in a gratitude journal, which can change your life, it's the most healthy coping mechanism that can reframe and refocus your whole picture on what's happening in your life. So you don't have to go down the path that I saw a lot of friends go down, and I easily could have gone down too. So speaking of which, I want to talk a little bit about this journal, because the thing that is interesting is when this Bob friend of mine said to me, you need to get a gratitude journal. I said, well, what is that? And I've heard of diaries and journals and all this kind of thing. And I said, well, so I looked at one and I ordered one online. It just said gratitude journal. So I got it from the movie The Secret. So I did what a lot of people did, is I just put it there and just, looked at it on the shelf for a month or two. And then one day I picked it up and I thought, I had to write in this thing. And as I say, 7 or 8 minutes, not much time to really help you and change your life. And so I started writing in it, and I could not believe how my focus changed. And we heard how many people today said about the sun, and in a better mood. Cheryl said that, and Kevin mentioned that as well. And any of those things, Kevin mentioned these videos. In fact, I'm going to do a drawing for a book I have too, and if you're interested, I'll put you on the list. I send out I do a video every single day on gratitude. And people always go, every day? It always kind of reminds me when I was working at Nordstrom's. You're the store manager of like the entire store? And not just the men's department? I go, the entire store? And I was like, do I look like that much of an idiot? I don't know. I mean, I guess I am. I don't know if you ever get that, Roger. Are you just produce? No, I'm the entire store. Meat too? In the front end? I don't know. And I go, yeah. So, but it's amazing how when you take this time, how this can reframe and refocus. And when I do that video, and then I send out a featured video every Monday at 10 o'clock, and it's to kind of kick off the week. They're just 2 minutes. And one day, and people say to me all the time, well, how do you come up with ideas? How do you come up with ideas? How many things are to be grateful for? One day it was just the furnace, because it was cold out, and I was just grateful for the furnace. And I always try to come up with catchy titles, and yesterday was That Sucks. And I noticed I got a lot of viewers on that one. And it was about when a friend and I took a trip, and we came back from the airport and our car broke down, or the flat tire. And I didn't say this on the video because I didn't want to get back to her, but he calls his girlfriend. It's like 1 in the morning. He says, Dave, she's the best. Great. He calls her, and he goes, what's her name? We have a flat tire. She goes, well, that sucks. Could you come and get us? No. So I thought, great. So the whole point of the video is, I'm grateful for Connor's friend that came and got us. I'm grateful. I know Kevin would come and get me. I'm grateful for that. I'll just forget about her. So it depends, and that goes back to glass half full, half empty. So back to the journal. So what I did is I decided, I liked the journal that I did, but I wanted to do some tweaks to it, so I made my own. And I sell this on Amazon, and I do sell a lot of them, and I'm really thrilled about it. And it's really changed my life. And basically, I just want to give you a real quick way this thing is set up. And again, 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes, less than 8-minute abs. So, and it's real healthy for you. Day, date, and daily number. Daily number is something I came up with, which I really like. 10 is the best day of your life, 1 is a tough day. And you assign yourself a number every single day so you can track and categorize and see how you're doing. You can go back and look at why was I a 5 this day, why was I 8 this day, and so forth. So very, very important. Current events, special occasions, and I'll always like this morning. I haven't written it this morning because I was up early because I wanted to be here early. This will be definitely, I'm doing 2 presentations. I'm doing Bellevue Rotary in the afternoon. That'll clearly be what's happening to me today. I'll be at Starbucks doing a few emails, maybe a couple of videos that Kevin was talking about. And then here's what you're grateful for. And it's just so simple. I mean, just look at health. Beverly mentioned cancer society, breast cancer, and how about just being vertical? I mean, I have people email me a lot. I got this problem. What do I have to be grateful for? It makes me laugh. Well, are you alive? You know, that's cool. I'm vertical, you know. I actually have both my hips. Yeah, I have both my hips and both my knees. I got all sorts of friends with replacements. So there's that. Highlight of my day is one of my favorite. What's the best thing? I write first thing in the morning. Some people write at night and they want to reflect on the day, but I like to get my day started off in a good mood, really, really focused on the day. So the highlight of my day is always yesterday. And typically, my boys, Connor and Kyle that I spoke of earlier, are now 18 and 28, actually almost 19 and 29. And half the time for an 18-year-old, my highlight of my day is still Connor saying, "Good night, Daddy." And he still slips and says Daddy a lot. And boy, that word just means the world to me. And after everything he and I have been through, and all 3 of us have been through, so often that's the highlight of my day. And then lastly is this little quote, at least on this page, just a little gratitude quote. And then this is something that's really important. It's called Gratitude Tomorrow. I call it your gratitude intentions. And that's everything you're going to be grateful for. And for those of you that know, and I'm not that skilled in the medicine world, but your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful, and it doesn't know the difference between what you imagine and what actually happens. And so when you talk about, I'm so grateful for the great talk that I had at Duvall Rotary. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful for that. I cannot tell you how many things have happened by writing about them ahead of time. And as on this road that I had back to losing my job and closing my business, I should say, after Dana died, I just was so hard to function. And Connor, every single morning, where's Mommy? When's she coming back? And again, all those tough things that you deal with. And I thought, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this. And so certainly the gratitude journal was a huge part of it. I went to some support groups, which are helpful. But I think that as I thought, I'm going to have to at least keep working. So I closed the business, and I got a job running a fancy clothing store downtown, or a bridal boutique, I should say. And then I'm there a couple of years, and she says to me, today, I can't afford you. Can you make today your last day? As opposed to tomorrow? I mean, okay. So I was out of a job. And it was very upsetting. I'd signed a contract for a couple of years, and we were ready for a new one, but that's the way it goes. So that was July 7th. And so I started writing on the right-hand side of this every single day. I'm so grateful for the job I'm going to have before the end of the year. Now, depending on the kind of jobs you all have, we realize that if it's mowing a lawn, you can get it today, but if it's a bigger job running one of those big boxes or what have you, it's going to take a little longer. So I kept writing, so grateful for the job I'll have before the end of the year. And literally on December 30th, not the 31st, the 30th, I got a call from Lowe's. Would you be interested in running our Mount Vernon store? We know you've had a lot of experience. That'll work. And so I did it. And so I think the thing that just made me realize this is that Winston Churchill said, never, never, never give up. And I realized there's so many things in our life. We all have these stories. I just am the one that's fortunate enough to stand up in front of a lot of groups and tell them. But I know you all have the same stories. But you just can't give up. You just can't give up on anything. And I'll tell you one brief story. And then I want to give away a couple of books. And it involved, of course, Connor. So Connor, as if this wasn't tough enough already, was told by the preschool, kindergarten and first grade, he's got problems. We need to have him evaluated. I said, well, he just lost his mom 6 months ago. Yeah, well, he's got real problems. So we went in and I did this evaluation. I had to be the best dad possible. And they put him through 8 hours of tests. And it was fine motor skills and gross motor skills. And then they interviewed me a bunch of these things. And the whole time, I kept thinking, he just lost his mother. Of course he's having a tough time. But he was. And so I wasn't really sure what to do. And ultimately, I kept him back and had him go to first grade twice, which turned out to be a really smart decision. It was tough at the time. But I remember that day, we walked back out into the car, and Connor sits next to me, and he goes, Dad, is there something wrong with me? And I just burst into tears, and I couldn't stop crying. As I drove him home, I said, no, Connor, you're fine. He was 5, because he was 4.5 when Dana had passed away. But he did struggle. He struggled a lot. And I was a pretty decent athlete in my time, baseball and football and all those sports. And Connor just had a tough time and he wanted to play. So T-ball, how do you miss the ball? How do you hit the tee? He kept hitting the tee. No, Connor, the ball's here. And he'd hit the tee and he couldn't catch, he couldn't throw, he couldn't run. And I thought maybe these people were right. And the lady that was the person that was the final wrap-up, I said to him, we were living by Green Lake at the time, I said, well, you know, that day, I think he's going to be the quarterback at Roosevelt High School. It was our local high school there. She goes, oh, he isn't going to be the quarterback. In fact, he's not going to play any sport. In fact, he's going to have a tough time his entire life. You're going to have real problems. And somebody once yelled out of an audience when I was telling that story, did you get her name? And I didn't, but I kind of wish I had in some ways. So I said, okay. But it looked like maybe she was right. So we go through it. He goes through all the sports. He keeps trying. He never gives up. He does the Winston Churchill. He never stops. He keeps going to practice, has a heck of a time. May 31st, I think it was 2005, he's playing a Little League game. And I'd watch him, he'd run back in the dugout and put his hands in his face and start crying because he'd strike out and the ball's here and he's swinging here. And every parent's biggest dream or maybe nightmare comes up. It's the bottom of the seventh and they're down 7-6 and there's people on second and third, kids on second and third and 2 outs. And guess who comes up to bat? And I see him coming out of the dugout into the on-deck circle. He walks up to the plate and I'm just going, could I just get a walk? I get an idea. How about hit by a pitch? Just anything, just not a strikeout, you know? And God's looking like, is this the time you want to pray, Timmy? Is this it? Sorry. So, ball 1, strike 1, ball 2, strike 2, it's full count. The next pitch comes flying in, and he rips it down the third baseline, just inside the bag, goes into left field. The guy from third comes in. The guy from second is rounding third. Here comes the guy from third. Here comes the ball. And the ball gets there in time, and they all crash, and the catcher drops the ball. And they won 8-7. And the entire team runs out to second. Still tough for me on this story. Grabs him, puts him on his shoulders, and carries him off the field. And they won. And I had such a big lump in my throat. And for those of you that are parents or anybody that's gone through those type of things, you know what I'm talking about. And when we got home that night, I remember sitting down in the bed, and I said to him, he was about 10 at the time now, 10, 11. And I said, you know, it was never about baseball. It was the fact that you never gave up. And what is so incredibly amazing to me is, I kissed him goodbye this morning as I was leaving because I left early, is he plays for Bothell High School, and he's a starting pitcher now. And he's one of the best players on the team. And I'm not sure how it happened, but I just know that he never gave up. So it's incredibly important that you don't. And when I talk about these methods like this is why I recommend this. And I've seen so many people, again, they drink themselves. A lot of my fraternity brothers from school say, we're really pleased you're not living under a bridge, you know, with a bottle, you know, because we figured we'll see you at I-5 for a cup of coffee. And I tell them, thank you, that's kind of a left-handed compliment, but I appreciate it. It's like, if you ever had told anybody that you've lost so much weight, you look great, you may want to redo your hair. You know, it's like, why do people do that? So anyway, so what I'd like to do is I want to give away a couple of books, and I want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, please, if you have a business card, please get out a card, because I'm going to do a little drawing. If you don't, I'm going to give everybody one of my cards, because I absolutely love and appreciate. So hold on to your cards for a second, because I'm going to have you do a couple of things. I so appreciate referrals. I'm so blessed I get to speak. I'm going to give you one of mine just to keep them for anybody that you might know that is looking for a speaker. I so appreciate the opportunity to talk to people, and every single day, and I said this to, I believe it was Beverly, about maybe it was Sandy, about what it feels like. Oh, hang on, I'm going to have you guys do 2 quick things. There we go. And that is to change lives and just even to impact a life and make a difference. And it's after some of those, I shouldn't bring up Lowe's again, but some of those knucklehead employees, I ain't got none. I seen him. I'm going to try to get my GED. It was so frustrating to deal with somebody when I want to just make a difference. So I make a difference in one person's life today. Has everybody heard the Starfish story? It's such a great story for those that haven't heard it. The 2 guys are walking down the beach, and here's the ocean, and here's the low tide, and there's just thousands of starfish, and they're just all getting fried in the sun because the sun's out today. What a surprise. And the one guy goes to pick up a starfish, and his buddy goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Hang on a second." And he grabs the starfish, and he starts to crank it. There's the ocean, and he goes, "What are you doing? What difference will it make?" He goes, "It'll make a difference to this starfish," and out it goes, and back into the ocean. You can't save all of them, but what if you saved one that day? So that's what makes such a big difference to me. So what I'd like to do is two things. Get a pen handy, if you will, because I want to have you do one or two things on your card. Number one, I do send out this Monday 2-minute video. If you'd like to get it, great. If you don't, put an X on your card, because I don't like to send anything to anybody that doesn't want it. And then the second thing is I also do life coaching, and for anybody that's had a tough time and is curious about that, I often get, maybe 2 or 3 new clients for every 10 or 20 people I speak to. And if you're interested in a complimentary consultation for 45 minutes, put a C on your card. And I do that just to talk to people that this method of mine has been so helpful to me, and it's made such a big difference that I want to make sure that I can assist people in getting back to getting away from the bars and the pills and all that crazy stuff that's out there. So let me go ahead and pass this around, and then I will draw for one, and then I will wrap up. So if you can pass that around, and then we'll have, let's see, I better pick, I was going to have Sandy, but then what if she picked her own? I'll pick it. What's that? The which?
May I have your color?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, sure.
Thank you.
I'll get the wax out of my ears. All right, so I'm going to do 2 things, and let me get this one. Grab another one here. I'm going to give away 2 books that I feel very passionate about, and they also fall kind of under the category of never giving up. I was fortunate enough I sent in a story to this book called Ready, Aim, Captivate. This sells for $25. It's an international bestseller, and it includes Deepak Chopra and some very influential people. There's yours truly. And it was neat because it was one of those not many people got into. There's, I think, 60 or 70 authors on here. So it was really, really cool. So I was very excited. I'm in chapter 6, and of course it's about gratitude. And live life with gratitude with yours truly. So thank you. So I will do this. And let's see who this is. Sue. Sue, of course it's Sue. Good job, Sue. And then I always tell people, I'm happy to sign it, and that signature could be worth something someday. And then some people go, "That's okay, I'm good." I go, "That's fine. I understand." And the second thing, and I want to encourage you, how many people here on a completely different subject have ever done a video? Cheryl has, Dave has, Kevin. Okay, so a few of you. So the thing I want to encourage you about is that I started doing these videos every day, and I get tremendous. I had over, I think I'm at 31 or 32,000 views now, and so it's very, very exciting. It doesn't matter what your subject could be. I'm sure I can see on the business cards all the different disciplines that you're in. But what I decided that was neat is one day I took the first, I've done 250, 260 now. I took the first 50 videos and transcribed them and had them put into a book. And so now I sell a lot of this book. So in anything you're doing, again, this doesn't have as much to do with gratitude, but it's really cool. I send it to a lady in California who transcribes them, and then I send it to an editor to edit it, and then I put it in the format of a book. And so it's amazing how much you can do with video and put it in all sorts of different disciplines, and so, or modes of viewing, if you will. Happiness starts with gratitude, 50 gratitude lessons to direct, inspire, and empower you. So that's this one. So let's see here. This is Beverly. Thank you.
There's a new, thank you very much. There's a new song out, have you heard it? You gotta get up and try.
Oh no, I need to.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to see that.
Try.
Well, and it reminds me of. I'm always looking for tips. Well, you gave me the quote from John Quincy Adams, which I put on my phone. That's right. There was a song by Danny Gokey called "My Best Days Are Ahead of Me," and he was the guy that was on American Idol. Yeah, and it's really cool. And he lost his girlfriend like 2025. And so one of the lines that I particularly like in the song is "Age is just a number." And I have this number 63, which I just don't understand how I got to be 63, but it just sort of flies by. Okay, So last thing I want to talk about is this is what I talk about. I do a 2 or 3 hour workshop, and especially when I do coaching, I go through all sorts of aspects of embracing gratitude. It takes as long as it takes. You can't ever give up. You need to clear out your brain and do some really fun exercises of getting your brain clear to the crap that we have. I talk a lot about when you all go back in your cars today, there's this windshield that's like this. It's about 2 feet wide or high and about 4 feet wide. And then there's this rear view mirror. Well, that's kind of the proportion you want in your life, okay? It's mostly in front of you. Learn a little bit from this thing. If you see some blue lights or something, I get it. But I mean, mostly it's out front, right? And then the gratitude journal is the vehicle for doing this. And people tell me, I'm getting an app now. You know why I'm doing an app in the gratitude journal? For 30 and under. So most of you here are 30 and under. So you got to write it. Starts in the brain, goes to the heart, goes to the arm, the hand, here on the paper. I am so grateful that Kevin invited me today. It's all those things, and then you can go back and refer to it too. So it's very, very powerful. So I feel very passionate about it. The Gratitude Journal app is going to be, and it'll type it, just like we saw on the little notepad. So, and then the last thing is sharing gratitude. The biggest thing that saved me is that I realized in order to save myself, I have to help other people. What is Rotary? I'm a member of Seattle Rotary number 4. I'll be there today at noon. And I've got another presentation this afternoon. Service above self. It's helping others. And when you're in that devastating position, I understand, like me, the cut and everything. You got to let it heal. But once it gets healed, what are you going to do after that? You know, there's times when you have to go within, and that's for shock, and I mentioned that earlier. But the final thing is sharing it. And then I realized that in sharing gratitude, it's like telling a story, and it gets better every time. And so a quick story I'm going to tell you to wrap up. I've flown for a long time, so I was very fortunate to be a pilot when I was younger. I was down at Ocean Shores, and I was flying along, and I was VFR, which is visual flight rules, so you're not supposed to be around the clouds, and I was between 2 layers of clouds, and all of a sudden I got stuck. And I went, oh Lord, I'm not supposed to be here. And I didn't quite sure how I was going to get out. And the sun came in from the Pacific Ocean, and it hit these 2 clouds, and I'm probably going 150 knots, pretty fast. And I'm hanging on to the yoke, and it just hits, and all of a sudden this thing went to these colors. It was like this kaleidoscope. And my hands, I'll never forget, I was just frozen because it was like something out of 2001, A Space Odyssey or something. And it just was like this. And back to the time thing, it probably was 45 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes or so. And I just went, oh my Lord, this is unbelievable. And then, bam, I pop out from the clouds, and I'm out in this blue sky, and I can see the ocean and the beach and the sun here. And I went, whoa. And I looked to my right and went, wasn't that the coolest thing you've ever... Oh, I was flying by myself. And I went, oh my Lord, I was flying by myself. Nobody ever got to see that except me. And it just always made me sad, because it's the sharing is where the value comes in. You got to get it for yourself. It's like building the foundation, make sure your foundation is strong first, then you can add the other upper floors. But you have to share it. And it's amazing. And as I say, every time I get to do one of these presentations once or twice a week, somebody tells me something changed, and it's just the best feeling in the world because you get to share it, which is why I do it. So I will tell you, gratitude can transform your life. It can change your life. And in my case, it saved my life. Thank you so much.